Greetings, Frederick Riddle here with another episode of Christian News and Views. This is episode 134, and this is Friday recap. So let's get a look at this past week. On Monday, I read an article about Russian President Vladimir Putin's claim. Here it is. The General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces denied Russian President Vladimir Putin's claim over the weekend that Russian forces had fully retaken the Kursk region, where Ukraine launched an offensive last year. In a statement after Putin made the announcement on April 26th, the Ukrainian military says their operation in certain areas in the Kursk region continues. A statement by Ukraine says the situation is difficult, but that our units continue to hold certain positions. Putin's announcement is nothing more than a propaganda ploy, the statement said. Ukraine said it also still has active troops in certain areas of the Belgorod region of Russia. My opinion at the time was in war, it is not unusual for generals and politicians to lie about any given situation. In the Russian-Ukraine war, that is undoubtedly true. That said, Putin is a proven liar. He lies about how the war began, the losses his armed forces have suffered, and the failed strategies employed. There is no reason to believe him now. Have the Russians regained any of the land around Kursk? Probably. More so than the Ukrainians probably want to admit, but they're still there. That's a far cry from what Putin has been saying. What has been going on Tuesday? Well, on Tuesday, I read another article. This was regarding a peace proposal put forth by the Trump administration. That includes recognizing Russian authority over Crimea. This shocked the Ukrainian officials, who say they will not accept any formal surrender of the peninsula, even though they expect to concede the territory to the Kremlin, at least temporarily because of the military. Giving up the land that was illegally annexed by Russia in 2014 is also politically and legally impossible, according to experts. It would require a change to the Ukrainian constitution and a nationwide vote, and it could be considered treason. Basically, what that means is that the Ukrainian president, Vladimir Zelensky, can't really do what the Trump administration wants him to do. First of all, if the Ukrainian Constitution forbids or creates an impossible barrier to exceeding any land to Russia, then that stops it right there. Russia has violated international law and its own previous acknowledgement that Crimea belonged to Ukraine when it invaded in 2014. So it does not matter how long Russia has been there. Their occupation of Crimea is illegal, and cannot be used as an argument to give them a right to the land. So the Trump administration, I believe, is wrong in this. I think they came in with maybe perhaps some preconceived ideas, but I think as they dig deeper, they're going to discover what I've just said is true. And international law is international law. We may not subscribe to the World Court, which we don't, but there is such a thing as international law. And the world has looked at what Russia did. They've already made their judgment, and they got a lot of facts to support that. On Wednesday, we celebrated the first 100 days of the Trump administration, and it's coming under some heavy criticism. However, the White House on Monday opened a week-long celebration of Donald Trump's first 100 days in office by focusing on his border crackdown, an area of relative strength for the president at a time when there are red flags for him in the latest round of polling. Now, my opinion is this: relative strength is more than relative; it's overwhelming strength. most America, well, let me get on my opinion. I almost threw up when reading that article. I mean, it was just terrible. Mixed in with the news was horrendous bias, manipulated facts, and outright lies. For example, the portion that dealt with immigration was treated as unimportant compared to the rest of his agenda. That's why they said relative strength. The fact is that many, and I would say most Americans, consider immigration either the most important issue or close to it. He reduced immigration from thousands and maybe hundreds of thousands down to a trickle, almost eliminating it altogether. Depends upon who you're listening to, whether it's eliminated, down to zero, or almost down to zero. It doesn't make it much difference, does it? It has been one would almost call it a miracle. And it is very possible God's behind all that. We know that God protected Trump when he was running for office. And this may have been one of the things that the Lord wanted him to do, and is given him a right for a victory lap here. But Trump has been somewhat modest about it, which is pretty good for somebody coming from New York. So he was, and I think he actually has, I don't know if I've actually heard him or not, but I think he acknowledges that while his policies have brought that on, he gives God the credit. I believe that's true. Don't ask me to quote it. I can't bring up a quote right now, but that's my overall feeling about his attitude at the very least. We hear that people are upset with rising prices. Now, you might have rising prices where you're at, but my personal experience has been a stabilization, for instance, of gas prices. When Biden was president, we saw prices go from just below $3 to way above $3. Some parts of the country it was $5 and $6 or whatever a gallon. Then we saw the prices going up and down. Well, they're still going up and down, but then they were going up and down like this. Now they're going up and down like this. The difference is the direction. There was an upward direction under Biden. Now I feel that I have this sense, and I've not really studied it as far as numbers go. Numbers don't lie, but liars use numbers. That's an old statement, and it's really true. So I just tell you, my impression is that they were going up under Biden, going down, pressing downward under Trump. So in this past week, I've seen them go down below $3 now, then them back up again, and I don't know what they are today. When I get out on the road, I'll probably find out. But that has been what I believe, an improving situation. Grocery bill seems to be stable as well. I have not really seen a lot of price increases since Trump came in. Now, they may be in your area. That's the problem. When they come out and say the numbers, we don't know what their background is. When you dig into it, I did this many years ago. It's not just under Biden or whatever. It's when they talk about numbers, they include everything. So, for instance, job numbers, they include fast food. Well, fast food industry goes up and down, and it's primarily an open entry level where people, usually young people, get their first jobs. It is not a sign of economic prosperity. And so, but they include them. And under the Democrats, they would really include them, and they would really build that up. Oh, look at this. That industry is going up. And so we're on track. We're no longer in a recession. Well, when you ask the individual at home if they're out of the recession or not, it quite often is, well, no, not really. We still have all these problems. I think that's changed under Trump. We are seeing people getting their feet grounded. We're seeing stabilization here and there, but it's gradual. It's not as strong as we maybe would like it, but it has been improving. And in the stock market, that's a lot of times fear plays us. Fear and superstition get involved in there. And that is something you don't want to put a whole lot of confidence in the short term. Long term, then you look at it from that perspective, that now becomes an indicator. But when it's just day to day, I would not allow it to color your thinking too much. But in my opinion, Trump has in these first 100 days laid the foundation for a very successful term. On Thursday, we had Bible talk, and I talked about what is the average reading level of the King James Bible, and that we found out was the 5th grade, which is pretty good. That means most people who have had very little education can still read the King James. That's not necessarily true with your other Bibles. While detractors say other versions are easier to understand than the KJV, the opposite is true. They also talk about archaic words. Now, and I projected, and I'm not going to do that today, but I went through a couple of charts, showing you that the KJV is easier to understand. And as far as archaic words are concerned, those so-called archaic words are clearer than the so-called more modern words. I also got into how to study the Bible. And I mentioned Webster's 1828. If you can get hold of it, then get one. The modern one is too colored for have much confidence in, colored by bias. So that's been this week. Now, if you like this channel, I encourage you right here to subscribe. And when you subscribe to this channel, TR Independent Books, you get Christian News and Views, which you're watching. You also get the Becoming a Published Author is Fun, where I give out free information to anybody who wants to become a published author. Both of these podcasts are sponsored by Basic Authors Training and Ministry Publishing, both services of TR Independent Books. So I hope you have enjoyed this week. And if you have not subscribed, please subscribe. It encourages me to give you the info to inform you, encourage you, and to inspire you to be the very best you can be. That's it for today, and I'll see you in the next episode.